Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up and September TBR. The first book I finished in August was The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. It's J.K. Rowling's first try at writing crime fiction. A model, Lula Landry, falls off a balcony. Her brother employs Strike to find her murderer. Strike's a private detective agency and he is struggling for money, so he takes the offer up immediately and begins to investigate. He has links to the police force, so they're able to get him information, and it really reminded me quite a lot of an Agatha Christie novel in who the murderer turned out to be. Throughout the entire book, I thought it was someone else, and then usually I'm good at guessing who the murderer is. Other people apparently guessed it immediately. They probably did. I enjoyed the book, and I really think that it fit in well to the genre. What it does well is, like with other detective fiction, they show a snapshot of other life, and through investigating the murder you kind of get an idea of how these people live. And I felt like the talk of phone hackings and the Prime Minister at the time and certain news things from the time worked really well to give you a sense of place, and I like this. I like the way the setting was used. The setting is almost a character itself. I like the characters, I liked how it was written. There were a few awkward bits of writing in there, which is why it only got 4 stars, but otherwise it's a very good, solid debut at crime fiction and I would recommend it. I'm not going to talk about this book much because everyone understands how I felt about it. That is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I started this book a few months ago, finished it in August because I was reading the Goldfinch throughout the entirety of August, but as I said in a previous video, I like to take breaks from long novels to get some other books finished, and so I finished this finally. I think I had 200 pages to read and I didn't enjoy it. I gave it 1 star on Goodreads, whereas I thought I gave it 2, but I gave it 1. Won't be reading anything more by the writer, and I am donating this copy to the charity shop when I'm next in. This book is already featured as one of my favourite books of the year, and that is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. The story follows Thea Decker. After a museum disaster that kills his mother, he ends up involved in some criminal activity and ends up living with his father in Las Vegas. Now, I will say that for the first 400 pages of this book, I had no idea where it was going to go. I don't think you had to know where it was going to go. It reminded me very much of a classic Victorian novel in its structure, in that it's just following the character's life without any analysis as to the way he's living. And what I really did like, it tells you inside that it's going to be a portrayal of grief. And when you've suffered grief and reading about it, sometimes writers don't do it so well. I like how J.K. Rowling portrays grief. I can't really think of a bad example, but I know they are out there, and they're people who don't really write grief well, but the Goldfinch really did write grief well. It went into it and it showed how it lasts. It's not something that goes away, it's something that sticks with you, and it's something that will just pop up whilst you're going about everyday activities. Even years later, this book follows the main character through about, I think it's 12 years of his life, and there were things that happened at the start that were still affecting his life at the end. And the Goldfinch, the picture, was... there was a mystery in there, there was romance in there. This book almost had every single genre in there. The character uses drugs and that influences the prose and the way it's written and the way the character behaves, and there's this worry that he's turning into his father, who's not the nicest man, and he experiences some really real human emotion and human thought that I hadn't kind of seen fictionalized before, and I really felt for the character of Theo. And Donna Tartt writes characters really well, so that there aren't any characters that you hate, and there aren't any characters that deserve complete love. but I was very emotionally invested in the story. I mean, not to the point of like tears, uh, but I like that I spent from the end of July till last Tuesday reading this book, and it was a slow in terms of I was reading it slowly. It can be fast paced, but I wanted to take my time with it, and it deserved the 5 stars I gave it, and my dog is sat on my books. He has made a bed for himself in my books. Anyway, The Goldfinch is a book that I think anyone could read and love. I gave it 5 stars. I want to read it again, but I want to give myself some time because it can be difficult. It's a very difficult subject, and Donna Tartt writes extremely well, and I understand why people enjoy her writing and her craft so much, because she is an astounding writer, and I would really recommend this book. I recommend every one of its 863 pages. I really enjoyed how it ended and how it came round on itself, and I thought the climax was amazing, and I didn't expect things to happen the way they did. I didn't understand how things were going to work out. After 863 pages, I was like, this is not enough time to get through the story, and I can't recommend this book more. I appreciate it wholeheartedly, and it deserves every one of its 5 stars. I read this book once I started The Luminaries, and I've talked about it already, and that is Almost an Evening by Ethan Coen, which is 3 short plays: Waiting, 4 Benches, and Debate. 68 pages long. Each play is about 10 pages. The first play, Waiting, I thought was hilarious. A man is in a waiting room and he discovers it has no door, and it deals with ideas of death and heaven and hell, and I found it funny. Then we had 4 Benches, which I didn't like 4 Benches, but then I think if you saw 4 Benches you could understand it more and appreciate it more, but reading it didn't really work for me in this medium. And Debate was a debate about God and religion, and I think religion, as I said in the previous video, is a contentious subject, and I think for me it will still continue to be a contentious subject. I appreciate religion for what it is. I think I need to understand it more, and Debate was a good layman's view of what religion is. Why this book got 3 stars. It's exceptionally short, and I'd say if you are a fan of the Coen brothers, then read it. And those were the 4 books that I read in August. I thought I would give you a September TBR. Now, I don't usually stick to to-be-read lists, but I have some books I'm already reading, so I thought, what the hell? And I am still currently reading The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. The Luminaries deals with the moon cycle. It won the Booker in 2013. It is very much like a Victorian crime novel mixed with all these different Victorian genres, but, and this was something that I didn't expect, I was reading some dialogue between Anna and some of the, what was his name, Nielsen, and I realised that a lot of the dialogue and a few of the things that are happening reminded me a lot of Western. As it says on the back, it's very complex, and I don't think I'm going to understand anything until I finished it, so I'm not going to make any more of an ass of myself, but I will be reading this book in September, and I do hope to finish it in September. Because it's quite a short book, at only 100 and something pages, I want to finish Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Now, anyone who knows me knows that my favourite film is The Hours by Michael... No, it's not. My favourite film is The Hours, and a book that I read this year was The Hours by Michael Cunningham, on which it's based. I had this book already and gave it away, and I saw this cover from Alma Green's and bought this, along with a copy of Great Expectations in a different cover that I now want to change to the Alma Green's edition, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Mrs. Dalloway, Virginia Woolf, it's a classic, and that's, I suppose, saying everyone seems to enjoy it would be a bad thing, because, like I said, it's a classic, so someone had to enjoy it somewhere down the line. I started this book straight after I finished The Cuckoo's Calling, and it's The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith. And if I get time in the month, and I really need a break from the Luminaries, I will be reading this. Another break from the Luminaries, Offices by Ethan Coen, another series of 3 plays. And if by some way of magic, if I develop some luck, if I get sacked from my job, this doesn't seem like a lot of books to other people, but trust me, to me, at the moment I am on the world's biggest reading slump. This is nothing to me. I was reading 10 books a month, so to get through these is going to be difficult. It's going to be incredibly difficult for me, and I'm then. Now, I'm just going to say the book first. If I manage to read The Luminaries, if I manage to read Mrs. Dalloway, if I manage to read Offices, Silkworm, and I just remembered another book. If I manage to finish listening to the Pickwick Papers on audiobook, then I am going to try and read another huge book from my shelf that is, we're just looking at, that is 843 pages long, and that is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. No, it's not, by Larry McMurtry. I know that the main characters out of this are travelling back to Lonesome Dove, I believe. It says on the back, a triumphant portrayal of the American West as it really was. I'm trying not to read blurbs here. Anyway, a few years ago, my brother watched the TV adaptation, and he bought the DVD for my dad, and we all watched it, and every day after school we would come home, me, my brother and sister, and we would watch the Lonesome Dove adaptation, and it has one of my favourite lines in all film. You're not dead, your head's just been skinned. I heard that and I laughed, and it is still one of my favourite lines from a film. And I was just completely intrigued by that Western. Now, my dad's always been a great lover of Western films, me not so much. There are a few, and I can watch them and I can enjoy them, but it's... Anyway, then I found out this year that Lonesome Dove was a book, and I saw a weird little mass market paperback and I didn't buy it, because then a few months later I discovered this amazingly huge monolith of a book, and I was going to read it immediately, but it's 843 pages, and this year I made a mistake and I read some really terrible books during the month of May that have put me off reading fiction. Which is a silly thing to say, but that's what happened. And since I didn't read a single book in the month of June, July I didn't read many books at all, and so we're finally getting back somewhere with reading in August, and I'm hoping not to disappoint myself, but who's to say I won't. Those are the books I read in August. These are the books I want to read in September. Will I do it? I don't know. Am I a crazy person? I haven't been tested. Anyway, until next time, that is all.